A mother's love can blind her to the consequences of her son's actions. As Kojo's reckless behavior escalates, his mother's attempts to protect him only lead to their downfall. Will love be enough to save them? Stay tuned to find out. In the heart of Accra, Ghana's bustling capital, there lived a woman named Madam Efua. She was known for her immense wealth and influence, a woman who commanded respect in every room she entered. Her mansion was a sight to behold, with grand columns, a towering gate, and walls that glistened like polished marble. It was not just the house that made her stand out, but also her son, Kojo. He was her pride, her reason for living, and she doted on him in every way imaginable. From the moment Kojo was born, Madam Efua ensured that he had the best of everything. He wore designer clothes from Paris, played with the most expensive toys, and even had a nursery decorated with gold-plated furniture. As he grew older, nothing changed. The best schools, the finest tutors, the most extravagant gifts, Kojo had it all. There was no limit to the things Madam Efua would do to make sure her son wanted for nothing. If Kojo asked for the stars, Madam Efua would find a way to bring them to him. But within the walls of their magnificent home, there was one thing Kojo was not given: discipline. When Kojo was just 10 years old, he did something terrible. He had been scolded by his teacher for misbehaving, and in anger, he threw a rock through the school principal's office window. As soon as the news reached Madam Efua, she sped to the school in her sleek black car. The principal was left speechless as she arrived in her designer sunglasses, her presence commanding immediate attention. "My son must have had a reason for doing what he did," she said coldly, dismissing the incident as if it were no more than a minor inconvenience. The principal, concerned about Kojo's future, tried to explain that the boy needed discipline and guidance, but Madam Efua cut him off sharply. "You don't need to teach me how to raise my son. He is not your responsibility," she said, her voice filled with authority. Kojo stood behind her, smirking, knowing that once again, his mother would protect him from any consequences. Weeks later, Kojo's behavior escalated. One afternoon, after returning home from school, he found his nanny, a Kojo, waiting for him to help him change out of his uniform. As she turned to leave the room, Kojo, filled with a sense of entitlement, grabbed her inappropriately. A Kojo, stunned by the action, slapped him hard across the face. "Don't ever do that again," she shouted. But instead of feeling shame, Kojo began to wail loudly, hoping to escape the consequences of his actions. Madam Efua, hearing the noise, rushed into the room. A Kojo explained what had happened, but instead of scolding her son, Madam Efua slapped a Kojo across the face. "How dare you raise your hand against my son? He's just a child," she cried out, her eyes full of fury. "If you ever touch him again, you'll regret it." A Kojo, humiliated and frightened, stayed because she needed the job, but the damage was done. For years, Kojo's behavior continued without any correction. As Kojo grew older, he became more arrogant. By the time he was 18, he was spoiled beyond measure. He had a collection of expensive cars, wore only the finest clothes, and lived a life of constant indulgence. He spent his nights in the most exclusive nightclubs, drinking and partying without a care in the world. One night, after crashing his first sports car while driving drunk, Madam Efua simply replaced it, brushing off the incident as though it were of no importance. "He's just a boy," she told her best friend, Auntie Abina. "Let him enjoy his youth." Auntie Abina looked on in disbelief, seeing the path Kojo was heading down, but she knew there was little she could do. Madam Efua had made up her mind. Kojo's attitude grew more cruel and manipulative with each passing year. He used his charm to seduce women, promising them the world before discarding them once he got what he wanted. His latest victim was Alma, a brilliant young university student from a poor family. Alma believed Kojo loved her, but she soon found out the hard way that he didn't. When she discovered she was pregnant, she told him, hoping for some support. But Kojo laughed coldly and said, "Get rid of it. I'm not ready to be a father." Alma was crushed. Desperate, she turned to her best friend, Esi, for advice. Esi, horrified by Kojo's behavior, suggested that Alma speak to Madam Efua, hoping that the woman might make Kojo take responsibility. Alma, trembling with fear and hope, approached Madam Efua's mansion. The security guards wouldn't let her in, no matter how hard she pleaded. Just when she was about to give up, a sleek black car pulled into the driveway. It was Madam Efua. Alma quickly approached the car, and Madam Efua, seeing her desperation, signaled for the guards to let her in. Alma entered the mansion, awestruck by its beauty. Madam Efua met her at the door with a sneer. "What do you want?" she demanded. Alma poured her heart out, telling Madam Efua everything. How Kojo had lied to her, taken advantage of her, and abandoned her when she told him she was pregnant. Madam Efua listened with a stone-cold expression, her face unchanging. When Alma finished, Madam Efua let out a cruel laugh. "Do you think you're the first girl to come here with this sob story?" she sneered. "You just want money. That's all." She pulled out a large bundle of cash from her purse and threw it at Alma. "Take this and get rid of that thing inside you. I won't have my son's name tarnished by your lies." Alma, shocked and heartbroken, was escorted out of the mansion by the security guards. As she left, she realized that she had been completely alone in this fight. She returned to ESI, who urged her not to give in to Kojo's demand for an abortion. "You don't need to do it," ESI said, her voice full of sympathy. "Your parents sacrificed everything to send you to school. You can't let them down now." Alma, torn between her fear and her love for her child, eventually decided not to go through with it. But the pain of what Kojo and his mother had put her through stayed with her. Months passed, and Kojo's behavior only worsened. More women appeared at Madam Efua's gates, all claiming that Kojo had either abandoned them or left them pregnant. But Madam Efua dismissed them all, throwing money at their problems as if that would make everything go away. She had become numb to the pain of these young women, believing that they were all just trying to exploit her wealth. One day, a woman named Efua showed up at the mansion, bloodstains on her clothes. She was barely able to stand as she approached Madam Efua. "Madam, your son, he raped me," Efua sobbed. Madam Efua's face twisted in disgust, but not because of the crime her son had committed. "Why were you even around my son?" she spat. "You cheap girls think you can sleep your way into wealth. Get out of my sight." Efua, broken and crying, was dragged away by the security guards, and Madam Efua turned her back on the situation, deciding that she would no longer offer any help to these women. But everything changed one morning when the police arrived at the mansion. They were here to arrest Kojo for the rape of Efua. Madam Efua's heart raced as she tried to reason with the officers, but they were unyielding. "You're also under arrest," one of them said, "for attempting to bribe a law enforcement officer." Shocked and desperate, Madam Efua tried to pull strings and use her influence, but it was too late. She was taken into custody, her wealth and power unable to protect her from the consequences of her actions. At the police station, Madam Efua was met by an officer she recognized. It was Kojo, her former nanny, the woman she had humiliated all those years ago. Kojo had become a police officer, and now she was here to see Madam Efua face justice. "Do you remember me?" Kojo asked coldly. Madam Efua's face turned pale as she realized the full extent of the damage she had done. Kojo was arrested and sentenced to 25 years in prison, while Madam Efua was given 10 years for her role in covering up his crimes. Months later, after her release from prison, Madam Efua was a shell of the woman she once was. Her mansion had been seized, her company gone, and her name dragged through the mud. She wandered the streets of Accra, unrecognizable to the people who had once admired her. Eventually, she found her sister, Auntie Abina, who took her in and gave her a place to stay. Kojo, meanwhile, remained in prison. When he was finally released at the age of 45, He was a broken man. He tried to find work, but no one would hire him because of his criminal past. One day, while wandering the streets, he saw a job opening at a cleaning company. Desperate, he applied and was hired on the spot. He started from the bottom, mopping floors and cleaning windows, determined to rebuild his life. What Kojo didn't know was that the company he worked for belonged to Amma, the woman he had once abandoned. She had worked tirelessly to build her business from the ground up, and now she was one of the most successful entrepreneurs in Ghana. Kojo's past finally caught up with him when he saw a portrait of Amma on the wall of the company's office. He was stunned to see that the woman he had wronged was now successful beyond measure. But when he saw the picture of Amma's son beside her, his heart sank. Could that be his son? Kojo would never know the answer to that question. What he did know was that the mistakes of his past had caught up with him, and now he was paying the price. Through hard work and humility, he slowly began to rebuild his life, but he would always be haunted by the things he had done. He had destroyed his future, but perhaps he could help others avoid the same fate. The lesson here is clear. Loving your child is important, but love without discipline and accountability can create a monster. Protecting them from the consequences of their actions only sets them up for failure. As parents, we must raise our children with values, discipline, and responsibility so that they can grow into honorable individuals who contribute positively to society.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an exciting new tale. See you in the next one.